while Junie puts on the specs. Welcome to episode 4 of Popping Off Pink.
Episode 4, we in the dough.
I am Chi.
I'm Junie.
And I'm Kimber. Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Okay.
Welcome to episode 4 of Popping Off Pink. I'm one of your 3 co-hosts, Chi.
I'm Junie.Marz.
And I'm Kimber.
Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, no, I thought you were starting the podcast. I'm sorry.
Okay, we are now.
We're starting. Did you get that part?
Yeah,
All right.
Okay, so one more time. Welcome to episode 4 of Popping Off Pink. I'm your host, Chi.
I'm Junie.Marz.
And I'm Kimber.
And this is episode 4. So really quickly, we want to do a quick recap of last time. So we talked about Lauryn Hill.
Yes.
We talked about what our expectations were for Yandi. What else?
We covered a lot of ground.
Happily Ever After. And these
Yeah.
two are sporting new hairdos. I don't know why they're being modest. Hello.
Because this is like regular. This is almost a ritual for me. I notice that almost every time the season changes, I'm either cutting my hair off or I'm just doing something. Everyone that knows me knows that, like, at one point in my life, I changed my hair color maybe every 3 months. And now I'm a new person.
You're
And I'm
reborn.
calm and I'm mature, so I don't do that anymore.
So if you follow us on Instagram, but you happen to not be watching us right now, can you, Kimber, and then you, Junie, just tell us what is different about your hair for those who don't know?
So I had like, I want to say maybe 5 to 6 inches of hair on my head, and then I cut it all off because I felt like it. So that's pretty much it for me. But Junie had a more fascinating,
Oh,
more
yes.
intimate experience.
Man, so I had like, I don't know, like 6, I don't know how long my hair was. It was getting kind of long on top. I had like the man bun style.
The top knot.
The top knot. And on October 1st, I felt like my hair was dried out. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to cut it. And not only am I going to cut it, I'm going to cut it on Instagram Live. So what I did was I just put my camera up. I put my Facebook Live up, everything live. And I just started cutting. I just started cutting and just, like, it felt immediately freeing. Did it feel like that for you, Kimber? Did you do it yourself or you went to a barber?
I did it myself. For those who don't know, I did go to beauty school.
Hey.
I got my life together. So I am pretty experienced with clippers and trimmers. But yeah, it always feels like a hot shower to me. I always enjoy cutting it. I always enjoy lining myself up. It's a nice like therapeutic experience. Not everyone understands that, especially women, because like they're more attached to their hair, and of course society teaches you that, the more hair you have, the better off it is. But I think what you kind of demonstrated is that unhealthy hair isn't good hair.
No.
And you can't be afraid to just do the right thing and start over if you have to.
Yeah, like, and I instantly felt better. Like, sometimes as women we hold on to our hair because we think like, well, at least it's long.
Right.
It may look kind of
Ratty.
crazy and ratty and me falling out, which my hair was literally doing, but it's not better.
It's not.
And like now my hair has like a new chance to shine, honey. Okay? Chi says she's next.
I
That's
did
how
not
you-
say that. But I did, I don't know if you call it changing. I took my braids out. I alluded to that in the last podcast, and I did.
You're giving us a nice wash and go.
Yeah, wash and go
I
and
like
conditioning, and I've been trying to remind myself to like massage my scalp and that type of thing.
I hate all that stuff.
And I would
Stretching.
honestly, I would cut it off if I didn't have a couple dents. So, sorry, I won't be sharing the bald fade.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk really quickly before we get into the next topic. What emotions did you feel as you were doing this?
I definitely felt like a deep sigh of relief. Like, you know, when you feel so stressed out that you feel like you're about to take a shit, and then the situation is like resolved and you're good. Like, that's how I felt. Like, I felt really good about it after doing it, and I was really excited to do it.
I felt like a weight was lifted off of the top of my head. I mean, literally it was, right? I mean, essentially.
Yeah.
But in a spiritual sense, I felt like, have you ever felt a surge of energy in your body? I felt I felt it at my crown, you know, essentially at my crown chakra. I felt like this freeing light come out of the top of my head, and I felt like, okay, I have clarity now. Hello.
Like, this is how it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
This is how you're supposed to feel.
That's how I feel this week, because I'm juicing. So no food.
No,
I'm not chewing. No. But what you said, I normally, just so everybody knows, I've been doing this for years, for just like 2 to 3 times a year. And this time I noticed that energy, I felt it on day 3. Normally I feel it on day 4. It's like this, you get this burst of energy, and so everyone around me is like, what are you on? And I'm like, nothing, juice and water, you know? But I wanted to talk about our emotions, because we're going to delve into the Lady of Rage. And, you know, just saying her name to me means so much. I know we touched on it very, very briefly around the controversy around Serena Williams showing her anger. I wouldn't necessarily classify it as rage, but it just spurred a discussion about, is it okay for women, or black women specifically, to be angry? And then how is that characterized in your workplace, on the tennis court, where have you? But what do you guys think of when I say Lady of Rage? Like, what comes to mind?
A superhero that
Absolutely.
turns it out all the time, and there may not be anything left in her wake, but she's just doing what she has to do. That's what comes to mind.
Straight up solid delivery every time, you know? Just this voice of, like, when you hear it for the first time, you're like, you feel that power. You know what I mean? I love that. She had a presence. Like, she has a presence.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing like her in a video when I was like, I don't know, like 10 or something like that, maybe like 12. And I was just like, who is that? You know, with these, like, what I loved is, like, she had the Afro puffs. It's like, you don't really see that all the time. And she looked like, her hair looked like mine. And I could really appreciate that about her.
And she was still glowing and, like, emanating beauty.
Yes, but then also she had this rawness, you know, so
Right.
she could be in the game with the big boys, because she could hold her own, and that's what I really appreciated about her.
Yeah.
Right. She was definitely one of the guys. That's the impression I got. She wasn't like, you know, typical standard of, like, femininity, where it's like, you know, your hair is done and your nails are on fleek, but you're talking, you know, like a guy. Like, with her, she's just all around, just very much an individual.
Yes.
She's ready.
Pretty much.
I feel like she's a lyrical scientist.
Oh.
And if you have time to, like, delve into her history or look at some of her older interviews, she really, it's like a science to her, the way she brings together her lyrics. And, you know, obviously been watching Rage for a long time, but then we went back to get ready for the show. I was like, whoa, I forgot about that. Like, she played this bully on the Steve Harvey show. That was hilarious.
I remember that.
And she was in one of the Friday movies as well. And she's still, you know, a lot of people may or may not know that she's very much an activist, and she's still very much an activist. She's been sharing information on, you know, Fred Hampton's house in Chicago, one of the former Black Panthers that was killed, just saving that house and making it a historical monument, things like that. So to me, she's just like this lyrical scientist who's also a force to be reckoned with, for sure. I mean, we say that a lot, I think, about our female rappers, but Lady of Rage really, to me, embodies that.
Yes,
Yeah,
I love
definitely. Yeah.
But I mean, it was a little sad to see, recently, a couple months back, she shared on Instagram that she had some health struggles. So it seems like she's doing better, but definitely like love and light, prayers out to you, Lady of Rage. And, I wanted to talk about something else that was shared. I don't know if it was shared in mainstream, but it was certainly all over Instagram.
Okay.
There's a doctor being very blunt
Oh, yes.
about how, specifically, he said women of color and black women, how we are treated by doctors, and he was being completely honest when we say we're in pain.
It's not believable.
And Serena Williams, she's coming up again. She almost died giving birth to her daughter because she had to fight for herself and say, look, I want a full CAT scan. Something's not right. She had a pulmonary embolism.
Yeah, that really pissed me off hearing about that, and him confirming that just aggravated me even more. And this is why my doctors have always been and always will be Jamaican, like myself, because you just can't trust people to put their personal feelings aside. Like, I would really like to know, where that stems from, that whole we don't trust a woman to tell us that she's uncomfortable and actually look into it. And hearing that brought me back to something that my mother shared with me a few months ago, and it was like on the radio, it was everywhere. Judge Hatchett's daughter-in-law, the same thing happened to her, and they ended up suing the hospital because she actually passed. She delivered her baby, and she was complaining about I don't know, I think she said her stomach hurt.
They took 10 hours, they said.
Yeah, they took 10
between
hours.
starting her C-section and, finishing.
What?
They took 10 hours, they had her sitting there for 10 hours in this pain, and in that time her blood pressure had gone up, she suffered some internal bleeding, and she passed away. And if in 10 hours, that's plenty of time to make decisions that can save someone's life, but they chose to disregard her. Like, that whole thing, it's beyond me. I don't get it.
It makes you wonder, how often does this happen?
Yeah.
And it got the attention, thank God, because of who Judge Hatchett is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was too late, but just watching that was extremely heartbreaking to watch this beautiful baby boy. And they already had, I think the other son was 1.5 at the time. And just a beautiful family. And even the background
She
on
was
the
incredible.
mom, she was an amazing person with so many different talents and just
interest. She was skydiving, race car driving, and then she was accomplished in her field. She was like, I guess, any man's dream.
my dream too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have the balls to drive race cars, but hey, she was an incredible person, and it just makes you wonder what kind of doctor disregards pain in a medical facility.
But the
and
fact
why.
that he called it out, he didn't. I know, in general, they say you must advocate for yourself with your doctors and your healthcare providers.
Of course.
And that's just across the board, right? But the fact that he was like, oh, by the way, specifically women of color, we don't believe you when you say you're in pain.
Crazy.
Where does that come from?
That's what I want to know.
You know
Why?
what? It kind of it brings everything full circle for me, because when I'm listening to both of you speak about Serena Williams and Judge Hatchett's daughter, there's this lack of value for black lives. It stems, you can see it in the medical field, you can see it in police brutality, you can see it, in many avenues of society. And I think it's this deep down lack of value of our lives, and it's just something that's been happening for so long. I remember my mom told me this story about, she's gonna be mad because she's gonna be like, you should know which relative this is. But one of my relatives, this is generations ago, had to go in for kidney surgery because one of the kidneys was bad. And I think it was my great aunt. She was waiting in the waiting room. These are white doctors, and when the doctor came out, he had the kidney in the jar, and he said, "I'm sorry, we took out the wrong kidney," and they killed him. He said, "I was letting my son practice."
Oh
Oh,
my God.
malpractice. Oh my
But
God.
again, right? So what is she supposed to do? But it's this lack of value for Black lives.
Mm.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the name of the woman isn't coming to me now, but she got dragged by Twitter, more specifically Black Twitter, for saying that women are the N-word.
Oh, I think
Of
that
the
was
world.
Bette Midler.
Bette Midler.
Yeah.
She wasn't. You see, girl, you're not that relevant. But Bette Midler made that comment comparing women to the N-word of the world, and I understand that it was a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt,
Yeah.
and the context at that time,
Which
and
was
I mean,
stolen
just,
from a Black woman, and I can't, now the name escapes me, but
Right.
it kept getting credited to the wrong person.
right, but like I get it. But the fact that comparison can be made, that like the absolute lowest level of human life is a Black person.
Mm-hmm.
And
The fact that
I'm tired, y'all.
would you
Like, this
go
makes
back
me
to
wanna
Black
take a nap.
women's bodies, when you that story you just told, like I was letting my son practice, that's how modern obstetrics and gynecology came to be.
okay.
They practiced on our, and practice is not even the word, experimented
Experimenting.
on our bodies,
Mhm.
and that is what, and whoever the guy was who was like the father of it, there was a statue, and it escapes me which campus, but they finally took it down a few
Yeah.
years ago. But like, to know that that's your history, you come from, there's no value there, we can just experiment on them the same way we would
Right.
an animal.
Yeah.
But to your point, that does delve into like how you see yourself, the police brutality, the mental, and we saw this week there was marching all over Chicago because, for those who don't have the background, Laquan McDonald, back in, I believe it was 2014, this was someone who was, a teacher and that type of thing in Chicago, and he was supposedly walking around with a knife, and he was shot 16 times, and so, some time went by, maybe close to a year, and then they finally got the footage on camera, and what they found was he was walking away when he was shot 16 times. So the chant was 16 shots and a cover-up. And over the weekend, the police officer who was responsible was found guilty. He hasn't been sentenced yet, but, all of Michigan Avenue in Chicago was ablaze with protests from everywhere. That was the thing that really stuck out to me. It was beautiful. You saw Arab people, Mexican people,
Everybody.
of course Black people, but white people. Everyone was out there marching about the verdict. So did you guys catch any of that? Or
I did, and it's just, like, I know it's important, especially as a Black person, to be aware and to be involved if you can in any way, shape, or form, but it's really exhausting. Like, it's really draining. When does it stop? When do people realize that no one chooses to be who they are? Like, when will these motherfuckers just get over it? Like, I'm so tired of this shit. I'm so tired of hearing about it. I'm so tired of seeing it. And I know it's not just in, the States, it's everywhere.
yeah,
Everywhere,
it's a little
globally.
crazier here. I feel like, because we're such a melting pot, and we
Yeah.
like to call
Yeah.
ourselves that.
Yeah, but like globally, we're just completely disregarded as human beings, and I don't get it. Like, why are you guys so upset?
There's fear and there's insecurity.
Well, there
And a lot
should
of
be
that's
fear
passed
because
down.
we're dope as all hell. But again, we didn't ask for this. We didn't ask for this, but it's fine. We'll be fine.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, my motto about everything is it all starts with you, right? Us on an individual level, right? The decisions that you make as a parent when you are talking to your children about people who don't look like you. What are you saying at the dinner table? Because all of that reinforces what happens when you grow up.
Yeah.
And I think people forget, oh, I'm just kidding, or I'm just joking, or I'm just saying this about this specific group of people, but I'm not trying to be threatening or anything.
Right.
But we don't realize how things build over time and how you really need to check people when they start to say things to you.
Yeah. There was like this video, I don't know where they were, like in a Walmart or something, but apparently an older white woman was harassing these two Spanish women, and then this other white woman walked up and she was like, no, cut it out, cut the shit, get on, continue with your shopping. And the woman tried to say, I'm from a different generation, or like she tried to like justify what she was doing. And the other woman followed her all the way back to the front of the store, away from the woman she was harassing. Like, that's the kind of action that needs to be taken.
Yes.
Because if you don't do anything, or if you contribute to it, when you see things like that happening.
You're an upstander or you're a bystander.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, Junie, it does start with each of us on an individual level. And the more we can cultivate that, respect and loving, and just, respect for being a human being. However, this happened, unfortunately, within the police force, and I know the Department of Justice got involved, and the investigations saw there were some patterns. So, I don't know, what do you guys think about the individuals, if there's enough of us, but how do we correct these institutions and these structures? Because there's always going to be someone at the top or in power or influencing, those that they have under them. So it's like, it's a pattern that definitely needs to be completely broken apart as far as the harassment and just the disregard for any citizen, but especially the pattern against, people of color and black bodies.
And I think it goes back to fear in all of these institutions, right? It's like, how many police officers are scared to speak up because they don't want to lose their job, right? Or they know something wrong is happening, but they don't feel that they can say anything or it will make a difference, or they have said something and they've been harassed by other people. It's a whole thing. It's deep. I know it's deep, because if it wasn't deep, it wouldn't keep happening.
Yeah, that's true.
It's very layered. And I know there are people that are voicing, injustice, and they're talking about it. But I think that there is a larger fear that kind of overshadows that, and it brings it back, like that concept of crabs in a bucket. It's like one person may try to rise up, hey, we really need to deal with this, and like 10 people may pull them back down.
Yeah.
And until those individuals can start to really be those whistleblowers within the police department, I don't know if change can really fully happen.
Well, again, the fact that we had the rainbow of colors of people out there marching, I think is amazing. And we want to take this time to remind everyone, if you're not registered to vote, check the deadline in your state. And make sure you're registered, because, when we look at institutions and like our voting power, and that's not our only power, but make sure that you at least are exercising that, and not just for, the president. Understand who all of your local officials are that, or councils or what have you, that affect your day-to-day life, your kids' life, your schools. And if you can't attend every meeting, then at least be in the know, because those are the folks that are going to affect you on a more day-to-day basis than who's in the White House, right? So we want to make sure that, you guys are at least educated about the upcoming elections. But to the point about, being tired, and we talked about the medical industry, today is actually World Mental Health Day. So we want to recognize that, and some interesting things are happening. We've been talking about mental health for the past few episodes, but one thing that's coming up with Charlemagne and Kanye is they're having a chit chat exactly 1 week from today.
I wish I caught those ticket sales because I would have been
Here in New York
there.
City, they're going to discuss anxiety,
Wow.
trauma, PTSD, and yeah, there were tickets on sale. I don't know if it's going to, I'm assuming it's going to be recorded as well.
It better
and
be.
we can watch it.
I need to know.
But Charlemagne's also selling a book, conveniently, around this
course.
discussion.
Of course. Charlemagne the capitalizer. It's fine.
It's just an interesting, I mean, on one hand, I'm like, this is great that this is happening, and they both have, you know, the influence to make people pay attention. On the other hand, I'm wondering how much, you know, if this is authentic, and
Right.
are we going to tiptoe around certain subjects? Are there any, I don't know if any women are involved in the conversation, or if it's just Charlemagne and Kanye. If there's no women, I find that a bit odd in this day and age.
They could have a panel discussion.
Hopefully.
That would be more interesting.
Yes.
But it's only the first discussion. And
Mhm.
hopefully, you know, if it is done with the intent to make a difference and expose things, hopefully it'll open up and progress to something greater. But I don't doubt that everything will be on the table because it's two of the biggest mouths in the hip-hop world. So, I mean, I feel like the discussion will be productive.
Oh, she just has a face like.
No, I'm thinking, because we talked about, you know, the allegations against Charlemagne a few episodes back, and I'm just, if you're going to do it, like, I don't do anything half-assed. So if you're going to do this conversation, like, I want to see how much is revealed.
Right.
Like, Kanye has revealed some things. He said some thoughts that people don't agree with, but at least he's being completely transparent.
As he always has been.
or he appears to be, I should say, because I know there is a machine as well with
And that's
Pimp Mama
why
Chris.
that-
But with Charlemagne, I think this is an opportunity, and hopefully not a missed opportunity. Not necessarily to delve into all the details, but maybe talk about from a mental health perspective or anxiety or stress perspective what he dealt with, you know, when handling those allegations, and what he wants people to kind of walk away with, especially the women who listen in as well.
I think it's really, one thing that I think is super valuable about it is there are two black men talking about mental health, which in my opinion is very rare.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we see women starting to open up about it, but rarely do you see men, especially black men, talk about it. So on that level, I am interested. I'm like, okay, what's really gonna come out of this? Because a lot of black men, you know, just like a lot of black women, need healing. And if this can start healing circles or conversations with men to really sort of get in there and talk about what's going on a deeper level, I think good, more power to them. But make it something that's useful for the community. Don't just use it to sell your book
Right.
or like talk about your album, okay? You have a larger platform, so you really can make a lot of change. So I just hope that they use it for that as well.
Do you think
Right.
it'll spur more black men, whether they be in entertainment or politics or what have you, to have these type of open forum discussions around mental health?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. If not on the celebrity level where it's like, oh, they're doing it and it got this many views, so we should start doing it. Or if it's like, you know, the fans that are like, oh shit, Charlemagne and Kanye is talking about their feelings. Word, I'm about to be on that. Like, you know, whatever it takes. I feel like everything else, it'll definitely have some sort of benefit.
It will. It will. So it's opening a new door, which I think is always good, you know, in terms of mental health and talking about it. It just makes it that much more approachable. If you see someone that you idolize or admire taking a first step in doing that, it opens the door and you don't feel like, well, nobody else is talking about it, so
Right.
Right.
you feel like, oh, okay, they're opening up. Maybe I can start to open up too, because I know I want to hear from men. Like I really do. Like I want to know what's going on.
Right.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're both dads as well.
Exactly.
And of daughters and sons. So
Yeah, like I want to know what the stress and the struggle is. I want to know what what's going on that you're not talking about. I want to hear them explain themselves for just, you know, everything. Everything.
I think that's beautiful,
And
the
I mean
moment that we've
everything.
come to as a culture
Yes.
that we are saying we want to hear, because for so long it was, you know, you were laughed at if a guy wanted to like share his feelings or say I'm hurt or even cry.
Or hug somebody.
Exactly. That's why I think this is a great step in the right direction. Okay.
So we'll be staying tuned. Just before we move ahead, my sense of smell is heightened because I'm not eating food this week, and I just want to tell you guys, because you don't know, that these two smell amazing. So shout out to y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. And while you're fasting, you still look very radiant.
You are glowing. Okay, Chichi, come on.
Thank
now.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that some good will come out of that. I can't subject myself to it, but
Subject yourself.
But this is your third time, right?
Oh
Doing
no,
this?
this is
you
plenty
do
more.
it.
I've been
since,
doing it
like,
for
every
years.
3
Like every 3 months, sometimes every
Okay,
6
for
months.
years.
Mhm.
And it's like you do get, right, this newfound clarity from it,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And like a major
because
shit.
just yesterday, actually, my boyfriend and I went to a juice bar. Shout out to Simple Juice over on St. John's in Brooklyn.
Okay,
Shout
Simple
out.
And I had like a wheatgrass shot, and I'm
had that
greedy,
before.
so I like the shakes with like peanut butter in it and all that good stuff.
Yes.
But I just never feel any, I mean, of course you're not going to feel a difference in one time, but I just felt miserable afterward. Like, do you like, what you're drinking? Like, do you like what you're drinking? And when, like, after this, I'm sure you're going to change your diet.
Yeah, it'll change for a while because your taste palette changes. So
Right.
if you've never done it, yes, you go through that. But
So-
after you've done it a few times, you look forward to actually tasting all of the ingredients. Like, oh, I can taste the parsley.
Train your
I
palate.
can taste cucumber. And then when I come out, you know, we talked about this a little bit before the show, but there's an emotional attachment. So it may be like, oh, I'm used to having a burger and fries with this person, and I'm going to meet them. So then it kind of flips. It's like, oh, can we go eat here instead? Or
Right.
go somewhere that has like a broader menu.
But my question is, how do you enjoy things like quinoa and like sauteed kale? I hate
It's
quinoa.
called seasoning.
What?
Garlic,
I don't
turmeric,
even, girl. I don't even put
berber
it.
from the Ethiopian spices. Oh my God.
I put
As soon as you
olive oil.
smell it.
I
and
like
olive
it.
oil. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think I shared it with everybody that I
You
lost.
shared that you like the garlic oil from Papa John's.
Oh. Okay.
That's like counter
Wow.
health.
I did.
So,
So-
if you missed that, it's episode 1.
I did say that. And that was before I lost 55 pounds.
Oh my God. 55
So-
pounds?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago when I was ODing on Papa John's garlic sauce, okay, I had a scare, and the doctor told me, she said, hey, you know, and this was like it was New Year's Eve, I don't remember what year, maybe 2013, I don't know, and she said, are you okay? Because your weight has been going up and up and up, and I'm a little concerned. Now, no doctor has ever said anything like that to me before. And so I was like, what? I was freaking out. And I really had to stop making excuses, stop saying the dryer, because I would really say stuff like this. The dryer shrunk my clothes, you know, and I did. And I didn't realize that I was that stressed, that I was using food as a comfort
That's
as
the
well.
biggest way to,
Right?
to gain weight is when you're under stress.
Yeah, so I was using food as comfort and alcohol because I loved me some margaritas.
Okay, I love being margaritas
And,
still.
I used to go to this place called, if you haven't been there, you should check it out. It's called El Cantinero. It's on 12th Street and University Place. And
I think I passed there before.
yeah, they have like an upstairs bar with lots of balloons and stuff, and they give you free food with the drinks.
Oh.
Bitch.
So-
Oh my God.
This was when I still was eating chicken and stuff like that. Right now, I'm a
How did you give up
pescatarian.
chicken? That's my struggle. I'm like
That was-
semi-pescatarian. I
That was
only
the
do chicken and
hardest
seafood.
thing. It was the hardest thing. But you know what actually helped me? When my dog was a puppy, I had to make her food. So I would boil chicken like every week, like big things of chicken. And I think after a while with handling it, I started getting grossed out, and it really helped me. But chicken, honey, I love chicken.
Like,
But I just say all that to say I understand the quality and the amazingness of juicing and quinoa and healthy food. And at first, you have to really wrap not just your stomach around it, but your mental, your mindset around it. You have to say to yourself, this doesn't really taste that good. Okay.
It tastes like shit. I want some chicken.
Okay.
And some dipping sauce.
Okay. Right? But then after a while, your palate really adjusts. Like, seriously.
Okay.
No, it does.
And it's crazy, but like you really appreciate what you're eating. And then when you have that chocolate chip cookie or you have that whatever, like some sort of sweet that you used to like a lot, like a Twinkie, let's say, or something, you taste how different, like with all the sugar.
The process.
You
and the
do.
process.
It doesn't taste as
And you
good.
it doesn't taste good. And I remember like after months of not having Chips Ahoy, I used to love that. I went back to like trying to eat a couple, and it didn't. I was like kind of like not as into
Even
it.
Like
soup,
you'll
you
just
can
have a
taste the
cookie made
difference.
out
Like
of
chicken has
chickpeas.
sugar in it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, is this really tomato soup, or can you bring me something else?
Right, and you really start to value the health and the goodness of it.
And a lot of folks in hip hop are either vegetarian or vegan.
yeah.
Shout out to Erykah Badu.
Doesn't Angela Yee have a smoothie?
Oh yeah,
juice
she has
bar?
in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the day. I've tried. I've had family members around me go full on committed to just one way of dieting. My younger sister is turning it out. She's got like a delivery of all these wholesome foods, whereas I am just like, I want chicken strips and french fries, and sometimes I want fish tacos,
And that's okay.
and sometimes I want a salad. But for the most part, I want like something deep fried and nasty.
Right.
And that's okay. I mean, I think it's about what your body wants, but also like when you come to a place where you start to want that for yourself. So it's more like right now, that's what you want, and that's okay. But
At some point.
at some point when you feel that shift, if you so choose to feel that shift, you will, and you start like appreciating it. What shifted me was the doctor scaring me.
Right.
So had I not had that conversation with the doctor, would I have changed my diet? I don't know. But the universe decided that was my time, honey.
Right.
That was my time to do a switch because I was spiraling. So
I'm still waiting to be shook,
But shout out.
congratulations to you both.
I was gonna say shout out to all of us and everybody listening, because you're trying to manage your mental health, you're trying to manage your physical health.
Exactly.
We are in a much more connected society as far as the internet and all that type of stuff. So it's easy to get stressed. It's easy to get anxiety. But I can't imagine, being an artist and having to deal with all those things alone. It really takes a good support team to make sure you're on your P's and Q's.
Yep.
And I know everyone, has different takes on that. Like Drake has like folks around him since he's got started. For some, it's having that significant other that's been with you through the trenches. And historically, I know we talked about Maxine Powell, may she rest in peace, who was like in charge of Motown's finishing school. If you guys never heard of this.
Oh, I
That's
heard of it,
awesome.
and I thought it was incredible, and I feel like that's kind of what we need now. Someone to instill, like we all had parents that were very like hands-on, and they taught us manners. So we are, a rarity amongst most New Yorkers because we're considerate, we stop and look over our shoulder before we cut people off, I feel like that's what the celebrity world needs. Like, the bar has gotten so low, and it's sexy to be shameless now. And I just feel like, God damn it. Like, now it's more about the mess than the music and the message. So, I mean, if some people would even consider, Beyonce kind of got it down.
That's the first person I thought of when I heard the NPR audio and I actually read the article about Maxine Powell. I'm like, you could tell her parents and whoever else they had around, not just Beyonce but Destiny's Child, but looking at Beyonce, there's a discipline there.
Yes.
It's very apparent, not just in how she presents herself on stage and if she does another interview when she does interviews, but
Right.
also just how she doesn't respond
And how she presents herself.
and
How
how
she
that's
presents
helped.
herself,
Not to say
yes.
that has to be everybody's brand, but the fact that you see people arguing sometimes when a celebrity responds one way and then another one responds, and they're like, "You guys need to take a page from Beyonce because she just doesn't respond to anything."
Mm-hmm.
That's why Beyonce is so successful, right? Because she set herself above, because she doesn't engage in behavior that you see many celebrities engage in, which is like the beef and like the back and forth. And her mom is amazing.
Yes.
Hello, shout out to Miss Tina Knowles, okay? But I just think that her discipline, her mindset, I want to know what she eats. Like, she's so driven. And I was listening to this podcast where they interviewed Kobe Bryant, and he talked about Beyonce, and he said that after every show, Beyonce immediately goes backstage and watches it.
Cause she's just like, she's a
The
Virgo,
machine.
and
Right?
she's kind of like, she's got that meticulous OCD thing about her. Like Michael Jackson was also
Yes.
a Virgo, so I feel like she's in line with that overachiever, perfectionist aspect. So she has that to start with, but just having like the couth. Because there used to be like a balance where, you have those rock star types that don't give a damn and they'll do what they want. Like you had your Rick James.
Love Rick James.
And then you have like,
Good
your
cleaning music.
Mhm.
Super
Right.
freak. Like scrubbing your floor. Oh my
I
God.
love Rick James. Yeah.
But like Rick James was like, balls to the wall. I don't care. I'm gonna do coke before every show, whatever. And then you have the more polished, more refined people. Like I feel like celebrities at one point used to be these like infallible people, and that's why they were able to be examples. And now celebrities are much more like human and like in the worst way. And it's like with all that wealth and achievement, there has to be some kind of discipline to go along with that. And like of course back in the day, all the Motown stars had some shit with them. David
course,
Ruffin was
yeah.
slapping people with motorcycle helmets, and like they were rough and tough, probably way worse than us, but they still had, a way to like save face and give people something to like aspire to.
I could just feel her spirit though when she was talking about the different folks she worked with. And she's like, Marvin Gaye was like, I don't need any finishing. And she's like, no, you don't need as much as the others, but you slouch.
Man, you keep your eyes closed
Right.
when you're
Thank
so
you.
people think you're falling asleep
Right.
on stage.
But then
Right.
she said Stevie Wonder was just always beautiful. But I feel like she represented an era because you know how you get certain images when you hear things or you read articles, and the images that started to come to mind were Harry Belafonte and Sarah Vaughan, and just, I'm old enough to remember, I used to get excited when I would go get the mail from my mom and there was a Jet magazine.
Yeah,
Jet
I used to love
magazine,
Jet
yeah.
I would
magazine.
read Jet magazine and go see who the beauty of the week was,
Yeah.
and Ebony magazine. And even though Ebony's still in print, I don't think Jet is anymore.
Nope.
If you go to Harlem Shake, if you're in New York, go to Harlem Shake and go to the bathroom. And they're like plastered all over the walls. Like I forget that every now and then I have to run in there and pee, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I have to take a picture of it. But I mean, to your point, they're not behind the ivory tower, right? They're on social media, and in a lot of cases, in the worst way. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, that's an opportunity, right, to show what you need to show or want to show. But some folks just take it too far. And I think if you had someone like a Maxine Powell at your label or in your camp,
Right.
Yes.
we're missing not just a Maxine Powell in entertainment, we're also missing that elegance that the publications that a lot of them have went out now.
Exactly.
We all used to look to that as the standard, and like, where's the standard now?
Right. Like, it's great to think that you can be a celebrity by just being ratchet and just turning up and doing what you do on a regular basis. But the fact is, to whom much is given, much is required.
Okay.
Right.
You have to have some level of polish, you have to have some kind of integrity, and you have to have some dignity about yourself. Whereas, you know, my family says you have to have brought up C. Like, you can't just walk around doing whatever you want. Like, you can't. Some people can get away with that, but, you know, those are the people that crash and burn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is our generation just gonna be a bunch of crash and burning
I'm
that's
bitches?
scary.
Like,
Well,
come
the-
on.
This is what I want to say about it. I think that what Maxine offered. Sorry, everybody. I was about to say Powers, and I wanted to make sure I said
That
Powers.
is a badass name. Maxine
Maxine
Powers.
Powers.
Okay. So what she offered wasn't just like a finishing school where you learn etiquette, but she offered something that is essential to development and success, which is mentorship.
Mm.
Almost parenting.
Everyone needs a mentor. When you, especially when you're trying to come up in the music industry, where you're going to be on stage, where you're going to be asked questions, where people are going to constantly be writing about you, watching you, listening to you. Mentors are key to climbing up the ladder, right? Because they've been through it. They can help you. They can guide you, you know, like a parent.
Yeah.
And I think what is lacking now is mentors, like honest mentors who are not just trying to make a buck from your record off of you, but who really want to see you grow. And I see positive mentorship in Diddy, what he's doing with all of his artists, but I think there needs to be more of
Yeah,
that.
we need more of
You
that.
know?
Did you see how Queen Latifah got put on the spot? Speaking of mentors,
Oh yes.
it was Kelly and who's her co-host? Is it Ryan?
Right.
Ryan Seacrest. And they were like, "Oh, you need to mentor Cardi and Nicki. You need to get them on an album together, and you need to produce it." And I like what she said because I'm all about two things: realness and balance. And she's like, "I'm from New Jersey. I like a good turn up every now and then."
Yeah.
But she also said that, you know, she would support something like that, not necessarily maybe produce it, but I just thought it was interesting that, you know, we automatically gravitated like towards a Queen Latifah. Like she can put some sense into them.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely. I mean, I feel like at this point it's clear that both Nicki Minaj as well as Cardi B, not so much Cardi B, because with her I get a sense that, you know, like she's been out here, she's been through the trenches, she is who she is, and she only means well. Like, I don't get a sense of, like, you know, bad intent from her. But Nicki is, like, more seasoned, and she's being, by industry standards, put out to pasture, and she doesn't know how to deal with it. And she's being very much, you know, like, I guess what everyone says now is, like, Lil' Kim was right. Like, that's kind of what she's projecting now, that whole like bitter older woman that doesn't want to step aside and let someone else, you know, take the platform.
I disagree. I think that part of what you said about the villain, I'll just call it the villain for lack of a better, is out there, and then at some point I feel like she was trying to swim upstream and she was trying to fight it, and then this week she put out some merchandise. She put out some book bags. There's one in hot pink. There's one black, and it's like Nicki Stop My Bag. I think there might have been some T-shirts or stuff like that. But like, I want to
dragging it. She's dragging
I
it.
think. I mean, when you have a Universal Music Group and you have several rappers that most people don't know, they are not household names, that are women that are saying they came to me years before Cardi was even a thing and said, "Help us take Nicki down." Again, I have to like see the whole picture. And I don't want to get into it now, we can get to it later, but like Nicki's multi-talented. In addition to being an actress or trained to be an actress.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, she went to LaGuardia.
She went to LaGuardia, yeah.
I know.
So there's that not like an actress like an Angela Bassett, but she's always put herself out there with the dramatic flair, which was needed. Well before, you know, some of the folks we're talking about now, she put it out there in a way, not since Missy Elliott, in my opinion, that was like really like for the theater, for the theatrics, for the drama. And I heard her, it took me a minute to realize it was Nicki, like singing on Wayne's album, Carter 5. And I didn't know she could sing that well. I was like, wow. Like, you hear her sing songs, some of her raps or whatever, but she was singing Dark Side of the Moon. She sings the hook. And I was like, wait, is that Nicki and somebody else? It's like, no, it's Nicki. So I'm not for the ageism or whatever. I think you can be 50, and we're going to talk about somebody in a minute. You can have 4 kids and be out there being yourself, being ratchet, be whatever. I do think at some point she tried to fight the whole villain thing. I think she's partially responsible for it, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's other forces afoot, and to me it would be negligent if I didn't, like, bring that up.
I don't know. I feel like there's just a lot that goes on that we're not necessarily aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, someone needs to come out and say something. But from what they give us, I just feel like the whole thing is stupid. And I don't know why it's so hard to just let everyone be, like, you know, who they are and what they are in their own lane and not have to, like, I mean, like, all the merchandise, like, you know, I guess it's no different from when Evelyn was selling the non-factor shirts.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's like, if you're gonna, like, extend an olive branch. Like,
So
talk
we don't
about,
know if that's happening.
because
haven't seen.
I don't think for a minute that Cardi would be throwing a shoe in an upscale event for no reason. There has to be some degree of truth to what's going on, and it has to be resolved. It should be resolved. If you're really about, you know, women sticking together, if you're truly this person that you project, and then as the older person, you should be willing to be like, listen, girl, I know some, like, you know, just have like a
I don't know that we
one-on-one.
can delve too much into, like, what's going on because we don't know, but I voiced my opinion on what I thought that was. That was a stunt. It worked beautifully. And just, we talked about this, you know, off air, but personally, I've had an older woman throw a shoe at me. Not literally throw a shoe.
What?
But I had an older woman that looked like me that was my supervisor a long time ago. Literally, like, embarrassed me, scream at me, and everyone around was just like, what is happening? Because I didn't do anything to start it. I didn't finish it. I walked away from it. That's where I get a little, you know, I don't want to assume what's true and what's not. Like I said, I do think everyone plays a part.
Yeah.
She certainly played her part, but I think for me personally, I don't want to say, well, it has to be true because she threw a shoe at an upscale event. I mean, like we talked about, if you really are that upset and you want to attack somebody, then that's the last place you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
that's where we
it
need
was a
Maxine
stunt in my
Powell.
opinion. Yeah, that's where you need a Maxine.
Maxine
No,
would have said, take
seriously.
her out back, take her around the side of the building,
And I,
slap her up out there.
you know, it's like, speaking of Maxine Powell, it's like we do need, where do, like, managers come in at this point?
Right.
Where do people who are working with these artists?
They're holding the phone.
Managers
recording
are
it.
just pimps at this point.
Right.
Managers are
They're the
pimps.
ones holding the phone,
I
recording
know,
it.
but that's the part that kind of gets under my skin is, you know, this lack of, like, humanity, you know? The fact that you see these women engaging in things like this, and instead we take out the phones and record, as opposed to say, like, you know what? We're about longevity. Like, let's think about your image long term. Why? Because things are not permanent anymore. Everything is based on instant gratification and being temporary and being a hit right now. And so I feel like there isn't as much of an interest in maintaining the longevity of an artist.
Right.
But what you said is kind of like a gatekeeper of culture. And we heard this a few years ago when there was some beefs going on with the male rappers. And they were like, we're the old heads. They need to step in. They need to pull people to the side.
It's true.
So we have people who call themselves, you know, shepherding the culture or gatekeepers. But I don't see that voice of reason. And when you talk about it, and when you talk about it, when I talk about it, I feel like there's a personal piece of us in it. There's a passionate piece of it. And it's part of the larger culture, right?
Yeah.
So, that being said, let's talk about the uproar last week around who's curating hip hop.
Child, oh my God.
Because you're in it. you're in it, I'm in it, and that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to look like us to be in it. But at the same time, where are the roots? Where did it come from? And you live it every day. I'm not visiting hip hop.
Right.
I'm not like, oh, that's cool. Let me go check that show out. Let me go, follow this person. It's like embedded into my upbringing, growing up in urban America, in a big city, growing up in gang territory, growing up as a black girl, growing up with this hair and everything else.
And getting braids on the porch and all of that.
So does it matter who's curating it when it comes to these museums and exhibits and all, all the fanfare?
I mean, it's important to recognize that for Black people, our lives run parallel with the albums and with the culture. I think it's important to acknowledge that. Like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, every time they have awards, they do acknowledge with video that Black people invented rock and roll. They do acknowledge that. So I don't see anything wrong with acknowledging that, hey, like it's notoriously, it originates from African Americans. I get that. But like every other successful thing, people of many races and many cultures are bound to embrace it. Anything that's truly successful is going to be embraced by all. Whether it's chewing gum or a music genre, everyone's going to want to take part in it. And, if we ourselves aren't doing as much as we can for hip-hop, because right now, frankly, I don't think we are. A lot of the things that are out now aren't that great. The quality has gone down considerably, Everyone talks about how they want the old thing back and this, that, and the other, So it's like, that's kind of the state we're in right now. So, like, in that respect, I'm like, what's so bad about opening it up to other people that are willing to do something that contributes to hip-hop? Like, what's so bad about that? Like, if you're not tearing it down and you're not criticizing it or making it worse, what's so bad if, Jim Bob opens a really good hip-hop?
Well, this was at the African American Museum, the one in Washington that was open a few years ago.
The one that Quincy Jones did the fabulous show for.
Yes.
Have you guys seen that documentary yet?
It's in my watch list.
It's so
my
good.
partner watched it, and she was like, you have to watch
Yeah,
it.
that's what
It's
everyone
so
keeps saying.
good.
You
Like,
have to watch. So I'm like, I want to set time aside to watch it. I don't want to be like watching it in like cleaning or something.
It's so good. But like, he is also like, kind of going back to the conversation we were having before, he's one of those people that made it a point to get all the hip hop artists in one room and say like, I want you guys to live to my age. And then he made this fabulous contribution to the opening of that museum. Like, if someone like that's not Black, can make that level of a contribution, I'm not mad at it.
I do think it's important to, this is just me, popping off. We fought and we continue to fight for equality. We're not done. And when it comes to topics like these, where my perspective is always, where are we right now?
Right.
So if we lived in some lovely utopia where I'm a curator at a Holocaust museum and an Indian person is a curator at the Hip Hop Museum and shift everything around, that's great. But we are in a position where we just talked about how our bodies are not respected, how we're hunted down by the police, how we're discriminated against, right? And I look at patterns when it comes to human beings. And when I look at how other people are the gatekeepers of their culture, of their history, and they hold it so close, and no one bats an eye when you walk into their exhibits or their museums or their what have you, when everyone there looks the same. But for some reason, when it comes to us, it's like, oh, it's fine, it doesn't matter who's doing it as long as they want to be a part of it. And I disagree. And that's fine for us to disagree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I disagree because we're not there yet. We still fighting just for respectability as being human.
I get that.
So, like, if everyone else who's, like, not above us, like, I think other people are above us, but how they're treated and not targeted
Yeah.
is above us, and how this world treats them, and specifically how